Member for Berwick.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I move to introduce a bill for an Act to amend the Corrections Act 1986 to provide that a prisoner does not have the right to undergo assisted reproductive treatment or any procedure for the purposes of any person undergoing assisted reproductive treatment and for other purposes. And in doing so, I introduce this today with what has been highlighted in the media this week, where a person who is convicted of murdering a mother of three, now has accessing to reproductive rights to go out and get treatment. This is a person who stole the life of three children, the mother of three children, who now have to be raised as orphans, and spits in the face of the victim's parents, family and those that are impacted. It is a big issue, Deputy Speaker, and one that I know the community is very, very passionate about. When I do this, and I know it's a procedural motion, we do it because in the government's program and our daily program, there's a section within this program which is about the introduction of bills. Now, if I'm correct, what I've heard from the other side continuously is there is no process for the opposition to introduce bills. Their argument continuously is it's got to go through a consultation, it's got to go through other organisations. And may I remind the government, when they introduce bills, the first time that the opposition see those bills is generally on the second reading to go through that consultation process. All we're asking from the government is the respect that we can have that same process. We want to introduce these bills because the community are rightfully angry when you hear that a person is getting out of the prison system and taking leave to go and get treatment. Now, I note that the minister in the other House has come out and stated that it's a self-funded IVF treatment. I'll take out of the fact that even if it is self-funded, it's not something that we believe we should be supporting when it comes to taking care of the child as well. And I think it's really important that we get onto record during this part of the debate around some of the issues that have been raised when the government changed the process in the legislation in 2020 for reproductive rights to say that a person, you couldn't take into consideration anymore a person's criminal history. However, when that was changed by the government in 2020, it did clearly state that while the checks are no longer required, a number of safeguards remain in place. In particular, art providers continue to have a statutory obligation to have regard to the guiding principles set out in Section 5 of the Art Act when making a decision about the treatment program of a person. These principles include that the welfare and interests of the child to be born are paramount. Now, I'm not sure which world we live in where the rights of the child are being put well and truly behind the rights of a person who stole the life of a mother are now getting put in place. Because this child, if I was looking at it, and any person in this place should look at it, I don't get how it is against the human rights of the child when we say we're going to have you born into a prison and for the first 5 years that is where you will remain. Because that is what the system is set up. That is what is trying to happen here with this murderer. They are trying to get a system where the person who will have a child will keep that child in custody for 5 years. If the mother doesn't get parole at the end of that 5 years, the child's then released from prison and sent out to other family members. That is not in the best interest of a child. It is not in the best interest of our system, and it puts a further burden on our already stretched justice system. The Dame Phyllis Frost Centre has already had rolling lockdowns due to staff shortages. They've already had to lock down other inmates at specific times because they can't get staff. Staff are working up to 16-hour shifts back-to-back, Deputy Speaker. 16-hour shifts back-to-back. They are giving up their RDOs. And do you want to know why? It's because the people who work in there genuinely care. They want to make a difference in the lives of the people in there. But they're also the ones that are raising an issue here of this is further stretching the resources, overtime costs, and all of the transport costs that are bear with this to make sure that a person can go out and get treatment for IVF. And we on this side 100% fundamentally disagree with this process. I've said it publicly that I don't understand in what world that this seems to be okay. We've spoken in media, we've got responses from people continuously. The messages coming to my office, and I know we sometimes get topics that are pretty fragile and we'll get some responses back in there where you might get some one way and some the other. I have only heard 2 people come out and speak that we should be able to allow a person to go and get IVF or ART whilst they are getting treatment, whilst they're in the prison system. And from our system coming back, all the messages coming back, the community simply don't support it. And for the government to use the 2010 decision, I want to put that in perspective. The 2010 decision was for someone to continue treatment for IVF who was a welfare thief. A welfare thief doing under 18 months in prison, and now the government is using that as an excuse for a person who murdered a mother of 3 over a $50 debt, and we encourage the government to support this bill to ensure it doesn't continue.